Welcome to the Connor's Corner segment of Ask the Lawyer. You know, a few weeks ago, I was watching TV with my wife, Beth, and we were watching a national cable show, and there was a guest on there. He kind of got cut off by the host, and my wife said, I wish I knew what he was about to say, so we called him up and asked him to be on our show. And with me right now is that person, Burgess Owens. How you doing today, sir?
Very good, Mike, and I appreciate the opportunity to finish up that thought, because I think a lot of people wanted to hear a little bit more of what my thinking was in that area. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Because you got cut off a little bit. But let me ask you something. Some of the audience may not know who you are. Of course, I'm a Jet fan, so I remember you very well. But you played 10 years in the NFL. You wanted to explain your background a little bit, coming out of college and playing with the Jets and the Raiders and the Super Bowl.
Sure. Yeah, I came out of University of Miami. My background there was a major in biology and chemistry, and first round draft choice of the Jets. Played there for 7 years. And then finally went on to the Raiders with a chance to win Super Bowl 15. And the most important thing I can say right now is I'm a very proud American, and I'm so glad to be a part of the same team with so many diverse Americans out there who want to get our country back.
Some of the audience may not be football fans, but do you have any idea of the percentage of guys who are drafted, unrestricted, undrafted free agents? How many of them get to be a starter for 10 years in the NFL, percentage-wise?
I don't know. It was a different era too. Keep in mind, I was back before the free agency deal was happening, so I was just happy to be a player and to play for the time I did. And I tell you, in those days, for those who don't remember, those who don't have gray hair, the Raiders used to win a lot of football games, and everybody wanted to be with them. So it was a good era to be part of.
Who were your coaches in the NFL before we get on to your book?
Well, let's see. With the Jets, and you remember Wade Eubanks,
Hall of Fame coach.
Yeah. And we had actually about 4 or 5 coaches during the 7 years I was there. The last one was Walt Michaels. And we just could not win. So I got out to the Raiders, and, of course, you guys know Al Davis. Al Davis was the one owner who cared about winning more than anything else. And Tom Flores was our coach. And we just had a hodgepodge of players who weren't supposed to win that year. We were totally underdogs. And we went on to be the championships. And that, in my mind, was the American way. That's kind of who we are, which is a hodgepodge of different people just doing our best. And in the end, we team up and we win. So that's kind of where I look at the Raiders in that era.
Okay, well, congratulations to you on a great career. But we're not talking about football today. We're talking about your book, Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men Into Whiners, Weenies, and Wimps. How'd you get to that title?
Very good start. Before I get started, before I get into deep detail, I want to let people know that as a very, very proud Black American, I'm extremely proud of my history. And that's the one thing that's been left out of with progressive teaching over the last few years of the success that we had from 1865 to 1965. So let me give you a real quick backdrop, because we had a community that was probably one of the most competitive, entrepreneurial, Christian-based, moral communities in our country at the time before we got hijacked. At the time, in the early 60s, we were 50% of our blacks across this country were part of the black middle class. We were the highest percentage of entrepreneurs in our country. We had the highest percentage of men committed to marriage and their family up to 1965 in our country. We were so competitive in terms of a race that the federal government put together a law. Democrats put together a law called the Davis-Bacon Act, 1932, that protected the all-white unions against black entrepreneurs. So we have had a lot of great success, and one that I cannot wait to highlight and talk more about. But on the other end, the whiny, weenies, and wimpsism has happened since liberalism caught up with us. And as that backdrop, here we are today in 2016. We have 83% of black teen males across our country that are unemployed. 93%, 93 out of 100 black teen males in Chicago, the bastion of liberalism, unemployed. 70% of black men are abandoning their kids and forsaking marriage. 40% of our black males are dropping out of high school and dropping out of college. Black-on-black crime is through the roof, and we have at the root of this is strictly liberal-based democratic policy. And we'll get into that in a few minutes, but one of the things that I can't wait to talk about with you is the betrayal of our race by the NAACP. And when you're ready, we can get into that and tell you exactly what over 100 years what they did to us and why we're where we are today.
All right, we'll go into it. Let's.
Okay. Okay. All right, here we go. In 1910, NAACP, which most people think, Americans think is black started, black owned, black controlled. In 1910, 21 white socialist, Marxist, humanist, atheists and race-controlled Democrats began the NAACP. It was the total antithesis of the Martin Luther King Sr.'s community, my black community of Christians, capitalists, entrepreneurs, and those who did not trust the government. So the only way they could get into my community is through stealth. They had all these whites controlling it, 21 whites controlling it, and in the front line, they showed us the black face of W.E. Du Bois, who was also a socialist and a communist, eventually forsaking our country. So that was the stealth of 1910. The stealth of 2016 is a company called BET, Black Entertainment Television. Black Entertainment Television has not been owned by blacks for 15 years. It was bought out in 2001 at $3 billion by white Democrats, socialist Democrats, the Redstones and Viacom. And from that point on, from 2001 until now, they have firehosed my community with anti-black, anti-white, anti-American, anti-woman, anti-family, liberal still. And if you wonder why you now have the environment where you have all these young people, uneducated, they're not able to think critically, they're so emotionally anti-American now, you wonder why. It's because you have white liberal Democrats breeding our race for their votes. You get people that are hopeless, helpless, angry. Who do they vote for? The Democrats. Because they have all these promises that are unkept promises, but done specifically to breed votes. So that's my goal, to get the curtain pulled back on who's really behind the hatred and the discourse we have in our country right now. And it is white, liberal, wealthy Democrats.
Do you go into the history at all, like the history of the Republican Party and the blacks, let's say, in the 19th century?
Yes. My book is a great, matter of fact, there's a movie just came out by Dinesh, Hillary's America. If anyone wants to get a visual of what my book is all about, and if you want to see that movie, then get the historical background of the movie, you can see the written in my book. Those two is a 1-2 punch in terms of what the Democratic Party did and who they are and who they really are. Because it's been a party that's from the very beginning has been so anti-black, but also so very good on messaging, on the stealth of messaging that they are friendly to blacks. But everything they do, their policies of the Davis-Bacon Act, the anti-school choice, which is what they want to keep poor kids stuck in bad schools, so unions can take advantage of that. The minimum wage, which keeps our black teenagers unemployed, and the welfare program that did total damage to our black families. So they have had a history, and the book and that movie highlights that.
Are you saying they're intentionally doing this, or is it just misguided good intentions?
No, it's intentional. If you understand this, there's this. We don't have now a racial crisis. We have an ideology crisis. The crisis is not black and white. It's ideology of socialism, Marxism, and atheism. And though that dark ideology of socialism, atheism, and Marxism never has been for harmony. So it's on purpose. It's hard for Americans to get their head around the fact that people can actually have a strategy of misery to get their political advantages. But we do. And we have not only white but also black socialists. When you look at, and I'm going to respond to the next few minutes, I do think that the black Americans are the key to kind of pulling us back. But we have, and I talk about my book, a group called the Royalty Black Class. And the Royalty Black politicians have been totally in cahoots, totally in support of their socialist friends, the white socialist friends. You wonder why we have a country now with all these problems the last 8 years, how we're getting worse than ever before. We have a president who's also in cahoots. He's a socialist also. He believes in what the Democrats have always believed in. And see that movie, you read my book, you'll understand that they've never been our friend. It's been class over race. And we need to finally get to the point where we as a people, look at the principles, look at the policies, instead of looking at a party and be loyal to them.
Now, what is your solution? I mean, I know you're trying hard to correct the problem, but what is your solution in the long run?
Very good question. Very good question. Well, here's the solution. It's very exciting for me. 28% of black Americans across this country hold the same values I do. You don't hear about them, but they believe in the American way. They believe in God and country. They believe in their race and want their kids to grow up, all kids to grow up in a better community. What we need to do as that forces become political free agents, we need to begin to look at our values first instead of party. We have 9% of black Americans voting for Democrats, even though they're totally different from our values. If that 28%, if we're capitalists, stop voting for socialists. If we're Christians, Christians do not vote for atheists and do not vote for socialists, anti-God socialists. If we believe in education of poor kids across the board, we need to stop voting for those who want to keep our poor kids stuck in these union public schools so they grow up to be Democrats. If we truly are respective life, then we need to not vote for those who, black and white, feel like Margaret Sanger, our kids are nothing but weeds. So that's the answer. It's just, let's become educated. Let's become political free agents. In the book, I talk about the power of free agency. If we were to look at policies and values first, we would have both the Democrats and the Republicans having to earn our vote. If they don't earn our vote, that means that they lose and they have to go home and do and work another job like everybody else.
Okay, now you mentioned Margaret Sanger, and again, some people may or may not know the name, but she's the person who founded Planned Parenthood. I think a lot of people don't realize the racist roots.
Well, and I have a whole chapter dedicated on Margaret Sanger. She was a very evil, evil woman. She was pro-Nazi, pro-KKK. Her thoughts on the black community, the black race, was that we were reckless breeders. And again, a whole chapter goes into it. But here's what they've done. The Margaret Sangers out there, that whole party that believes in a genetically superior race, which is what Margaret Sanger believed in, like the Nazis did. So they've been breeding for the last 100 years our daughters for the profit-making abortion cartel. There's over 1,800 black babies killed every single day by white abortionists. 80% of those abortion clinics are placed in black neighborhoods. That's breeding. That's a specifically targeted group that they're going after. That group has now put aside 16 million black babies since 1973 out of a population of 40 million. In some civilized countries, that'll be called genocide. Here it's called choice or women's rights. The Democrats at the same time have been breeding our community, our urban black community, for their votes. When you put in the kind of message, and everybody goes to BET, you see the negative messaging that goes through there, the stereotyping of men who are breeders. They have kids and not taking care of them. They call their girlfriends baby mamas, illiterate, not being able to think, singing and dancing, that's all they do, and they have no positive messaging about educating their kids or pulling up your pants and going out to get to work. That's the message. That's the stereotype of the Democrats. And then that was a fight that we had back when I was growing up. When you ever go back and see Martin Luther King marching, notice how they wear the white ties, the shirts, the jackets. They're trying to fight the negative stereotypes that liberal Democrats had put on blacks. And we're now dealing with the same thing in BET, with a black face, the whites behind the curtains. And by the way, the whites we're talking about, Steele Darman, Sherry Redstone, the board of directors of ICOM. As Americans, we need to pull those guys. We need to pull the curtains back and pull them out and have them discuss Black Lives Matter. That is their seed, their negative seed they've been putting together for 15 years so they can get the vote. Now it's gotten out of control. We need to have them come before us, explain to us why they put that seed of hatred into our communities.
What can we do? Let's say those of us who are Republicans, conservatives, what can we do to help you in your battle?
Very good. Very good question. First of all, stop apologizing. White Americans have nothing to apologize. Our race did just fine before liberals took over. Number two, read the book, look at the movie that I just talked about, The Heroes of America. You will see visually what my book talks about. And for those Americans who really want to help the black race, identify a black American who says all lives matter, who has the courage to say all lives matter. You have somebody who has a tendency of being conservative. Give them a book, my book, and put on there, from a proud American, write your name, give it to him, and let him begin to read. I'll tell you what's going to happen. We get 5 to 10%, 15% of black Americans who pull themselves away from that groupthink, the Democrat groupthink. They will never, ever have the control they have of the black community they have today. We will start to put these people out of business who thrive on our misery, because black Americans, once they understand they've been betrayed, will never let that happen to them again. So we just need to pull together as a country and get people educated. Get educated yourself, and then let other people that you know, that you respect, put this book in their hands so they can also read the same truths, so that we come this November, the Democrats, number one, do not have the power to move forward any further with what they've been doing so far.
How do you get a hold of your book? And again, the name Liberalism, or How to Turn Good Men Into Whiners, Weenies and Wimps. But how do you get a hold of the book?
Barnes & Nobles and Amazon.com. Either way you can get it. And it's been on back. It was one of the better sellers the first week it came out. So we're now going out through our third reprint. So get it, read it, you'll love it. You'll find out why it is that we were such proud Americans and still are, many of us, and how we get our country back so that we are back to the Judeo-Christian values instead of getting into the socialist, Marxist, atheist trending that we're now going into right now. We need to pull our country back, guys, and we can't do it by apologizing. We got to be bold and educate ourselves and help our other Americans understand the truth.
Do you have a website where people can learn more about you and your books?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I also have a Facebook page. And my Facebook page is very active. I communicate a lot on that. My goal right now, my focus has been for years, is to educate. So if you come there, you'll see across the board different views, different backgrounds, but we respectfully deal with each other and try to educate each other on what the deal is. So that'll be the best way to do it.
We enjoyed you as a Jet. Happy for you when you were the Super Bowl Raiders. Thank you very much for what you're doing today, because a lot of us really appreciate that you have the courage to stand up for what you believe in.
Mike, thank you so much. And keep in mind, this is a team effort. It really is. It's people like yourself who hear and want to get the word out. You have a venue and allow people like myself to speak. And let me just say one last thing. For those out there who heard of Stacey Dash, support her. Stacey, if you go to the EDP, you find out who the white racist bullies and liberal people are who the target is. Stacey Dash is the target right now. Go out and read her book. Buy her book, There Goes My Social Life, Inclusive Conservative, and help support those black conservatives that are being targeted and put down at the knee by these cowards.
Very well said. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you very much, buddy. All the best, buddy. Have a good one.